The movie begins with a wedding ceremony where Paul Durson and Sophia Minor are getting married. Paul is narrating saying he hates when movies show the ending first, but he just couldn't help himself. He then rewinds to the beginning showing himself in a suit talking about how his dad's old suit fits him perfectly. He's talking to someone named William who is a famous basketball player named Devante Rhodes, although Paul keeps referring to him by his first name. Paul tells William that he's proposing to his girlfriend Sophia. Paul shows him a ring and William tells him to just leave and that he's going to call the police. Paul is delusional. He believes he is in a romantic relationship with a famous musician named Sophia Minor who he also calls Ladybug. He goes to Sophia's home where he's confronted by her security guard William, who is now being called Belle. Belle tells him to leave and that Sophia is not his girlfriend. Paul, still convinced of their relationship, claims she does puzzles with Belle because she feels bad for him since his wife died of stomach cancer. Paul then reveals a ring and proposes to Sophia, who he believes is the woman standing in front of him even though it's actually Belle. Paul threatens Belle with a knife but eventually hands it over after Belle pretends to be Sophia and accepts the proposal. The film jumps between Paul's delusion and reality. Paul describes his wedding plans to an unnamed character JH, including the music, his best man, and a ceremonial dagger that is in customs. He's oblivious to the fact that JH is a young boy, and it is revealed that Paul and another person named Penelope Pascal, Penny, have escaped from a mental institution, leaving 2 dead and 1 injured. The authorities consider them extremely dangerous. The boy's father, who is also a police officer, tells him to stay home with his Aunt Eleanor, but he goes out to get the mysterious package from the post office for Paul, a locked trunk with clothes and the ceremonial dagger inside. The story shifts to Sophia's perspective. She's being interviewed by an assistant who keeps referring to her songs and music, but Sophia has no idea who this person is talking about. Sophia is shown as a reclusive, anxious woman who lives in a secluded home with armed security. She spends her time doing puzzles. Her father, who is also her security guard, tries to get her to go out more. Her father receives a call about a man trying to enter their property and he goes out to investigate, but he cannot find anyone. The plot reveals that Paul is not the one who is unstable. Sophia is the one with mental health problems. She has multiple personalities and one of them is an alter ego called Sophia Minor, a musician who is famous in Paul's mind. The real Sophia is the one who is reclusive and does puzzles. The film keeps switching between Paul's delusion of a happy relationship with Sophia and the reality of a disturbed woman who is afraid of the outside world. Paul, in his delusion, believes that he is in a love triangle with Sophia and another man named Devante Rhodes, a basketball player who is also a part of Sophia's famous life. The film goes on to show Paul's obsession with Sophia and his belief that they are meant to be together. He's also convinced that Sophia's father is holding her captive and preventing her from seeing him. The film's climax is the wedding. Paul, still convinced that he and Sophia are getting married, finds Sophia's house and manages to get inside. Sophia, who is now in her Sophia Minor personality, is surprised to see him. Paul tries to rescue her from her father, who he believes is holding her captive. He even tries to get her to run away with him. The film ends with Paul and the young boy JH, who is the police officer's son, in a car with Sophia's father. Paul holds a gun to the father's head and orders him to drive to Sophia's house, believing that Paul is waiting for them there. The boy, who has been helping Paul all along, reveals his own delusions, showing that he also believes in Paul's reality and the fake love story. The film ends with a chilling question from the father to the boy asking if he works for Paul, and the boy repeating Paul's earlier words, "You should never go into business with your friends." The film reveals the tragic depths of Paul's delusion and its entanglement with Sophia's fragmented reality. As Paul, Penelope, and the young boy JH make their way to Sophia's house, Paul is armed with the ceremonial dagger from his delusion, believing it's the final piece of his wedding day fantasy. He thinks he's rescuing his beloved Sophia from her overprotective father. However, the father, a police officer named Belle, knows the truth. Paul is a dangerous escaped convict and Sophia is a woman with multiple personality disorder whose mental state is extremely fragile. The story cuts back and forth between Paul's warped perception of a romantic rescue and the terrifying reality unfolding for Sophia and her father. When they arrive at the house, the scene is set for Paul's imagined wedding. He sees Sophia as his beautiful, willing bride, but she is terrified and confused. Her persona as the reclusive puzzle enthusiast is at odds with his delusion of her as the famous musician Sophia Minor. Paul's attempts to help her are seen by Sophia as a violent invasion. He presents the ring and the dagger, symbols of his fabricated love, but to her they are instruments of terror. Belle attempts to de-escalate the situation, but his efforts are misinterpreted by Paul as a betrayal. The final confrontation between Paul and Belle is not a sword fight as Paul imagined, but a desperate struggle for survival. In the end, Paul's delusion shatters, revealing the full horror of his actions. The movie ends with the unsettling image of the boy JH repeating Paul's phrase, "You should never go into business with your friends," a chilling sign that the line between fantasy and reality has blurred, not only for Paul but for others around him as well. The story continues from where it left off, with Paul holding a gun to the police officer's head. Paul is in the throes of a full-blown psychotic break. He has taken Sophia captive and believes they are about to be married. He is oblivious to the terror he is causing, instead seeing Sophia's distress as typical pre-wedding jitters. He even tells her they are going to get married at the Cassowary Tabernacle, the venue he mentioned earlier. Sophia, in a moment of clarity, realizes what's happening and tries to calm him down, apologizing for what happened at her concert where his real-life girlfriend died. She tries to explain to him that none of what he's imagining is real. Paul doesn't listen. He takes her back to her house where he has already set up a fake cocktail hour with the young boy JH and Penelope, his fellow escapee from the mental institution. Paul has also captured the real pastor Tim Lutzner and locked him in a trunk. He forces Sophia and Penelope to sing a duet, which to him is a beautiful pre-wedding ritual, but to them it's a terrifying performance under duress. During the song, Sophia and Penelope try to communicate with each other, but Paul is too lost in his fantasy to notice. The film's climax is the wedding ceremony itself. Paul forces Sophia to wear a blue wedding dress and leads her to the altar. He has also forced Belle to act as the father of the bride, and he's even convinced the little boy JH to be the best man. The ceremony is a chaotic and surreal mess. Pastor Lutzner is struggling to perform the ceremony while being held at gunpoint. A woman who appears to be an innocent bystander objects to the wedding and Paul threatens her. Sophia tries to explain the truth to him, that he is not marrying her but a man who is standing in for her, but Paul refuses to listen. Just when it seems like the wedding will actually happen, Belle, who is acting as the best man and the woman who objected to the wedding, try to intervene. Belle tells Paul that the person he's marrying is a man and doesn't look like Sophia, but Paul is so far gone that he believes his own fantasy. When the pastor asks if anyone objects to the wedding, the woman who had spoken up earlier shouts "I do," and says that it's her fault they're all there and that she should be the one marrying Paul. The pastor, now fearing for his life and others, quickly pronounces them husband and wife, but before they can kiss, the police arrive. The wedding turns into a standoff. Paul holds the woman he just married hostage, but then he impulsively stabs the woman who had helped him escape, Penelope, and she falls to the ground. The final scene takes place in a limousine with Paul, the woman he just married, and the young boy JH driving off into the night. Paul, still oblivious, believes he's now on his honeymoon. He tells the boy that he can't be his bodyguard anymore because he's a married man, and the woman tells him that she's a married man too, a nod to her being transgender. The film ends with Paul still in his fantasy, and the real-life consequences of his actions are now a shared reality for the other characters. The final scenes of the movie bring the chaotic narrative to a surreal and chilling conclusion. The police have arrived, but Paul, lost in his fantasy, believes they are just more wedding guests. He stabs his accomplice Penelope Pascal seemingly on a whim after she tries to force a duet with Sophia. This act of violence breaks his own perceived reality as he momentarily questions his actions. He apologizes but quickly falls back into his delusion. In a desperate final attempt to reason with him, Belle and the unnamed woman who objected at the wedding try to show Paul the truth. The woman reveals she is a man and not Sophia. This revelation, along with the chaos and violence, finally forces Paul's mind to confront reality, though his psyche immediately constructs a new one. The film's final moments are a bizarre road trip in a limousine. The woman who identified as a man and Paul are joined by the boy JH. Paul, still convinced he is a married man, plans their honeymoon to Maui. The twist is that the person he married in the ceremony is a trans man, something Paul's delusional mind cannot process. Paul, believing he is in a heterosexual marriage, tells the boy he cannot be his bodyguard anymore because he is a married man. The woman he is with, the one he believes to be Sophia, tells him "I'm a married man too," a line that subtly confirms his new reality while also being true. The film ends on this note of twisted domesticity, leaving the audience with the uncomfortable truth that Paul's delusion is not a fleeting episode but a permanent state that has now consumed others in its wake. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.